listeners. Thanks for tuning back in to the Wisco Weekly podcast. This is episode number 13. And on this episode, Kelly and I explore how improv can help the car buying experience. So stay tuned for that. And also at the very end of the episode, there will be a reminder announcement of a project that I am working on in this quote-unquote off season. So here it is what it is, and this is the Wisco Weekly podcast. Chicka, brown cow. Hey, listeners, this is the Wisco Weekly podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Wisco. Welcome to another episode. I'm here alongside co-host Kelly Cruz. How you doing, Miss Cruz? Mrs. Cruz, sorry about that. Mrs. Cruz.
You're excused. It's a good day.
It is a beautiful day, finally. It's a little chilly, though, outside. So, Kelly, catch us up here. Actually, I have a couple announcements I want to make. Let's actually talk about what you've been up to. So, obviously, if you go to our Facebook page, you took Unifile on the road.
I absolutely did.
And you had your bachelorette party.
And not my bachelorette, but yes, a bachelorette party.
Correct, sorry. Not your bachelorette party, a bachelorette party. So, as a paying customer of a bachelorette party,
Yep.
How was the customer experience?
It was quite wonderful, actually. You know, you never know how these weekends are going to go. They could,
How many women?
There was 15 total, including myself.
That's a lot
at
of
a
women.
gorgeous house in Carmel.
Okay.
So I had
So I take it the 15 women that went. It also was it was indicative of the personalities, the demographics of these women to go to Carmel.
I would say so. I mean, they seem like versatile people. I'm sure they could have thrived in another bachelorette. Type of scenery, whether it be Vegas or something else.
And so what did you all do?
So most of the weekend was kind of relaxing.
Okay.
We on the first morning.
Is relaxing a euphemism for sitting down and watching entertainment?
No, this was like literally sitting around having girl talk from like 10 to 12 at night. But
Sounds
we
awesome.
had some games and interesting conversation.
What kind of games?
Oh, we were mad-libbing. We were doing heads up. That was entertaining. So heads up, like you put the phone up on your head and you have to get your teammates to guess what's on the screen. So, I mean, it can be all over the place and charades. And so I have some video. It was entertaining.
Okay.
But we had one morning where one of the girls, she has her own Pilates studio in Redondo. And she did a Pilates class for us.
Oh, that's cool.
On like a grassy veranda in the backyard overlooking the Carmel Mountains and the beach. So that was pretty nice. And then some wine tasting, obviously. So,
hey, that's a good segue. Why don't we just let's get started?
All right.
It's a Tuesday episode. Why don't we start with Unifile you here? We're doing this completely backwards here, but that's
Totally
okay.
fine.
All right. So what we have here today, we have a 2014 Primitivo from Paso Robles, Sculptera.
Nice.
It's a blend, 82% Primitivo, 9% Cab Franc, and 9% Petite Syrah. So we'll post a picture of this on Facebook so you can take a look. Cal, don't forget, you're going to taste this, and you're going to guess how much this bottle is.
I was just going to say, are we going with price point after we guess? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You ready for it?
Ready.
All right. We already poured.
We were prepped and ready.
All right. Here we go. It's light, a little sour.
I feel like has a big bouquet though, like on the nose, like it has a lot of smell.
It does. But it's still very light, right? Like fresh.
Yeah. It's not heavy on the palate.
Yeah, certainly a wine actually good for especially this being a red, good during the day. Right?
Yeah. If you're going to go wine tasting and drink during the day.
The segment you guys did on the road there with a Pinot, first off, I'm not a fan of Pinots.
Oh.
But But Pinots are lighter wines, and
Yep.
they are actually good during the days. This also, I would say, is good during the day. What else do you taste?
I taste some fruit. I'm not sure what kind though.
I taste like a lot of almost, it's funny is
Like a blackberry.
I almost want to say asparagus, but I feel like I've just been wanting to say asparagus for some time, right? Like there's always these like inane vegetables that are in these wines that I want to taste, but I have no idea if I do taste it. But there is this kind of I don't know. It's just like I just keep thinking sour and fresh.
Well, I'm wondering, again, I think probably it's like acidity. I don't know what
Acidity.
it's from,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I think
yeah.
it's a combination of fruit, which maybe makes it more fresh, and then the acidity that
That's the word. Boom, you nailed that one.
it
Acidity.
must be the wine taste.
That's it. All right. Well, that is Sculptera 2014 Primitivo. So that was You Enophile You.
You enophile you.
What do you even introduce that segment?
I know.
We're getting all crazy here. And by the way, so let's get to some announcements now. Finally.
Do you want to do price point real quick on the
I'm
wine?
sorry. Yes, go ahead. What do you think?
I'm going to go with the $15 to $20 price range.
Okay, so since we're doing bottles that are under $30, I will give you a plus or minus $2
Okay.
error.
19.
That is good. This one was $21.99 technically, but we'll say
I almost
21.
said $19.99.
Yeah,
But
no, that's good. Yeah, this is $21.99. So I do like this bottle again during the day, and of course, I have to look at things in a flight.
right, you do like to compare about the flight. I think this is a little heavy for a flight, but at the beginning of a flight.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly what I was going to say. I would not actually have this in the middle, even though this is kind of a day wine, almost light. I actually wouldn't have this at the very beginning. I would have it more in the middle.
Yep.
So spot on. Okay, let's get to some announcements here. So first off, this is the second to the last episode number 13 of season 2. One of the things that in the downtime in March specifically, Wisco Weekly is going to be holding a nice, fun little contest that I would like for all of you to participate in. So this podcast is about the customer experience. And as we bring on guests and as we hear about some of the different changes that are going on in the industry, it's kind of this gone are the days of these customer horror stories. So as a way to kind of archive the entertainment of these horror stories as a kind of a throwback, I would like for you to visit wiscoweeklypod.com/customer horror. You can submit your favorite horror story, your favorite buying horror story, for a chance to win prizes. Upon submitting your story, you'll also be interviewed, and we'll start to publish some of your episodes for people to listen and consume. So visit wiscoweeklypod.com/customer horror to submit your best horror story in buying a car, and you'll get the chance to win some prizes. So be sure you take a look at that. Okay, so for today's episode, number 13, Kelly, I've been going down a rabbit hole for the last couple of weeks now, and specifically looking into improv.
Looking into it as in something you might want to try out?
No, not at all.
Okay.
But learning, okay, because I think if you start to take a look at some of the better/best speakers out there,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly the more dynamic of them, they all kind of come from this stand-up comedy background. All right, so just a couple examples, and just ones I can think of off the top of my head: Adam Carolla,
Mm-hmm.
Joe Rogan. You can even go to your Jimmy Kimmels, your Jimmy Fallons, right? These are all people who are great at speaking and not just even speaking, but communicating with an audience, with another person. So I've been looking into improv and essentially what is improv all about? How does it work? Why is it that all these people that are at the top of their game, if you will, they're great communicators or they're great at their art, and they all kind of go, when you kind of peel back the onion, it all kind of boils down to how they started in stand-up comedy. So as I've been looking into improv and just seeing exactly what is improv, how does it work, how can I learn from it? there are two essential principles that more or less all professors, all great comedians start with on how you do improv. The first thing is you have to agree, okay? So what is meant by that is if I throw out a statement, you initially have to agree with it in order for this conversation to continue on. Because if you don't agree with it, then we've kind of stopped, right? So the second thing, so the first thing is you have to agree. The second thing is you then have to participate yourself with either saying or understanding that you're going to be saying yes and. So here's an example. Today is a beautiful day.
Am I going with?
Yeah,
yes.
Go for it.
And I hate improv, by the way.
Well, so do I. But you know, I've definitely been learning some things about it, and certainly I'm not a master at it at all. But so again, let's go back to this. Today is a beautiful day. The weather is cold, but I'm loving it.
Yes, and I think when it's a little chilly outside, it's fun to drink coffee or wine.
Yes, and coffee is great as a dark roast or as a light roast, and I certainly love when I have coffee as a to-go cup or in a to-go cup.
Yes, and I don't know if I have a good one for you on this one.
It's okay. So these are the building blocks of improv, all right? And
I have a good side story here in a moment. So.
Okay, all right. So these are the building blocks of improv. The first principle is agree. By agreeing, you're essentially saying that whoever that you're speaking to, that okay, I'm going to play in this world, right? The second thing is that if you by agreeing, then if you immediately, there's one of these terms called blocking. Blocking is that if somebody does throw out a statement, and a statement is also synonymous with an offer. That's another terminology they use. Is that whenever you're doing improv, you have to make an offer as opposed to asking a question. So, like if I were to say, "Hey, this is a beautiful day. It's great weather to drink coffee," and you say, "Is it, Dennis?" You're kind of blocking this conversation that we're supposed to be having.
Right.
So you want to. So then again, you agree, and the second thing is you reply, or you think in your head that you want to state something that mirrors this idea of yes and, because you are now contributing your own thoughts to the conversation. Go ahead. What side story do you have on this?
Well, I'll be honest with listeners that that you had this idea for this episode, but we hadn't talked about it ahead of time. And we have actually used the same technique, and maybe it's doesn't look great on me because I should have been aware of this, but in my office, I work for a wealth management firm, and our kind of chief practice officer has specifically used this technique in dealing with like interpersonal relationships among colleagues or even with clients, that if you're having a conversation, and we specifically use the yes and technique and do these improv sessions at training seminars.
So actually, what kind of improv sessions do you do actually? Because I kind of have a couple that I was going to get into.
Well, it's on this yes and topic. So it's really more when you don't agree with a coworker. And so they have a statement and you want to kind of fight back with, you don't agree with it, or you want to cut their idea down. And instead you find a more positive way to respond by saying yes and. Okay, so let's get into again. But don't excuse that for I'm really good at this. It's just
no. Look, and I'm terrible at this again too. It's like I went down a rabbit hole a couple of weeks ago just to look into this, because I do think that there is value in how these stand-up comedians, how they carry out their improvisation, and then how that essentially just transpires into other avenues of their work life, or hell, even professional life too. So I want to do a couple exercises with you, but before we do that, I want to mention a couple things. So what improv also stresses upon, and I'm sure you probably heard this then from your, I'm sorry, did you say boss or partner?
It's our practice officer.
Practice officer,
the firm,
okay. Yeah. So one of the things that improv helps is with listening. Because then you can't, when you're improvising, if you already have an agenda, then you're already like loading your lips and you're not really listening to what's going on at the current time.
Yep.
So when you listen, that means you're in the moment. And when you're in the moment, then you have to allow yourself to be flexible, right? Because then, and then when you are flexible, understand, and again, I think this is where we were going back and forth in that little exercise. When you are in the moment and you're being flexible, you have to also then know that there's no bad idea.
Okay? Yeah, right.
So
let your guard down.
Right. All right. Okay. So, because I do think that, part of this whole improv culture then is, well, because first and foremost, you're supposed to be agreeable, then even if it is a bad idea, like again, as long as you're agreeing with someone, it's almost like you're showing them a level of respect that, of course, then they're not going to want to fight you, right? Which is kind of what your boss was then saying is like, look, if you have a disagreement, use these yes and methods because then it prevents this ability for you to be combative, with your colleague. Okay, so, all right, here's one of the exercises we're going to try, all right?
Okay.
We're each going to say one word to finish off a sentence, a thought, a story.
Okay.
So, and now again, we have to understand that it's kind of the whole, we're going to have to finish these sentences in such a way that it's yes and hopefully we'll tell a story with it. You kind of follow where I'm going with this?
Right, so you're going to say a sentence but not finish it. I'm not
even going to say a sentence. I'm going to say a word.
Okay.
So I'm going to say a word. So I'll say computer. You say the next word.
So we're just doing words. Oh, right.
Just
to
words.
build a sentence.
To build a sentence, to build a thought, to build a story.
Got it. Okay.
All right. So here we go. So let's start with the word computer.
Generated.
Pictures.
Are.
Oh, hold on real quick. Computer generated pictures are.
Aren't we building on a sentence? We have to throw
Yeah, I guess. Okay, see, I guess. I guess this was my fault here because again, I think part of it was like I'm trying to follow then that line of thought. Okay, let's try to go again. All right.
Okay. All right.
All right. Cup.
Full.
Of.
Coffee.
Starts.
My.
Day.
Off.
Splendidly.
And then.
That's 2 words.
Shoot. And.
Then.
I.
Start.
To.
Cuddle.
With.
My.
Pillow.
After.
I.
Shower.
And.
Soap.
My.
Body.
And.
Legs.
Following.
Okay. Anyhow.
All right.
So that's one exercise to kind of help build upon the whole listening, right? Because again, it's actually pretty hard to all of a sudden okay, I don't want to have my next word loaded because I have no idea what Kelly's going to say, but we have to kind of string along this thought process. Okay.
Well, and I think too, it's hard not to put 2 words together because I had an idea in my head of where I expected it to go. And if I just put one word, it wasn't descriptive enough to lead you sometimes.
Well, so again, this kind of goes to the whole point of listening to each other, listening, being in the moment, being flexible, and knowing that there's not a bad idea.
Right.
Okay. Let's try one more exercise here. Okay. So now we're going to speak in sentences. However, when we speak in sentences, whatever the last letter of the last word I use, you have to start your sentence with that letter.
And does my sentence have to be related to your sentence?
No.
We're built. Okay.
No, but we still have to kind of do the yes and.
Okay.
So again, I'm going to throw out an offer. All right. I throw out the offer. So again, let's go back to the example of the day is beautiful. So if I say the day is beautiful, then your next sentence, has to start with L. And again, you still have to keep in mind that yes and. So now you can't start now with yes and. That's, I guess, the whole point of this. Yeah? Okay, you got it?
Yep.
All right, so let's say my car is broken.
Never have I ever had a broken car.
This is you're like playing the never have I ever game.
I don't know where that came from. That's what the end brought to my mind. Sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. I messed that up. Okay, you said
I'm gonna try better.
No, let's go with that one. I'm sorry. Okay, so never have I ever had a broken car. Remember when you were driving a Toyota Highlander?
Riding down the road in my Highlander was fun.
Never have I ever had fun driving a Toyota Highlander.
Raking in the dough, maybe I'll get a better car.
R seems to be the way that we're going about this. All right. So again, what's funny is I don't know about you, but one thing I noticed I was doing right there as a way to better pay attention is I wasn't looking at you.
You were thinking?
Well, I was actually, no, I was listening, but I almost felt like by looking at you, it was going to distract me from listening then too, which I think this is, you can almost take this to conversations when you have with people, either in a business or a professional sense, where there are some people that do like to make eye contact, and there's others that don't like to make eye contact. But then sometimes if somebody is making contact with one person, the other person's not making eye contact, you think that person's not listening to you.
That would be my husband. Maybe he's just not listening to me.
Maybe he's just not.
No, but he doesn't love eye contact.
Yeah. Okay, so at the end of the day, Cal, doing improv, and you're agreeing to play in this world, and your method of agreement is saying yes or being complicit in this world and contributing your own thoughts by this yes and philosophy. So again, just to recap, if you're listening and when you listen, you're in the moment, and when you're in the moment, you have to be flexible, and when you're flexible, there are no bad ideas. So I know what you're asking. I know what you're thinking. Maybe you're thinking this. Do you even know why I even brought this topic up here?
I don't 100% with 100% certainty, but I'm always tying it back to customer experience. But just thinking about conversations people may have with customers.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry, you said conversations people have with customers?
Well, I was trying to think like dealer-customer conversations,
okay,
like on the fly and working with people. And
fair enough. Okay, so I started thinking about how improv would pertain to buying cars. All right. And so one of the things that always happens with car buyers is that it's not always an individual that buys a car. There's an individual that drives the car, but in buying the car, it's not always an individual, right? It's you can have one person lease a car, or you can have one person drive the car, but you can have two people leasing the car, or at least it's under their name, right?
Right.
So, and then you can also have a person from a corporation. They could be looking at a fleet of cars that they want to cater for their business. But there are times, though, either in a corporate setting or in a personal setting, that improv can come into play. And so this is where, again, you have to listen, you have to be flexible, and you have to just go along and support one's decision, as sometimes as asinine as that decision could be to buy and lease a car. So who is this episode for then? Couples.
Oh.
Listeners, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Wisco Weekly podcast. As a reminder, in this off-season, I'm going to be hosting a customer horror segment of my website. And so I want you to visit wiscoweeklypod.com/customer horror and submit your best car buying or car selling horror story. I'm going to be lining up some prizes for the contest. All submissions are open as of now. So start submitting your stories. Take a look at the website for more information. And of course, like our Facebook so that you can continue to follow along and see how things are going. This customer horror story should be great. It'll make for good, not only education, but hopefully great entertainment. Thanks.